and you know, it kind of, there's like, I know what you're saying, like it's almost like, you know, you ever hear of Rupert Sheldrake? He's like a scientist that talks about the morphogenetic field of memory. Like everything, every chair has like a memory to it. So like you were saying, like that house that you lived in, you know, many people probably had been there, had experiences, maybe even played the guitar right there in that same spot, and a lot of energy goes into that one spot. Then it could come, you know, it lingers there, has a memory, maybe tapping into that.
Well, I know the owner of the house played guitar.
Oh.
So maybe he played. I don't think he's as good as Jimi Hendrix, but maybe he played the guitar in the past. But I have heard of the morphogenetic grid. I know it's not exactly the same.
Right.
But the morphogenetic grid is another word for the Akashic records. It's everything. It's knowledge of all things.
I like the invisible ether, or what would you call it? The
infinite intelligence.
Oh, I love that. That's a great phrase, man.
Yeah, I like that one best. Yeah.
Yeah, the Akashic records makes it sound like it's actually like a record, like you go to a library, you can actually pick out a book, and you know, it's too weird.
The Akashic records, I don't like that term because, like, there's this guy on the internet who claims Akashic records is evil. Don't do anything with the Akashic records. It's evil. Don't touch it. Don't think. First of all, the knowledge of all things belongs to everyone. It's not evil. Right. It's not evil. I mean, I guess there might be evil stuff in it, just like there's good stuff in it. There's everything. You know, I mean, it's the records of everything. So that's why I don't like Akashic. It's too new agey. It's too. It sounds like it was invented in the 70s. That term, you know.
Right. It does. I think it probably was if I looked into it, you know. Yeah. But, a lot of people don't touch that subject, man. The Lovecraftians, like they talk about like like another guy just came out with a Necronomicon, but it's the story of the writer of the Necronomicon, like Abdul Haraz, the 8th century mad Arab.
I mean, there's nothing wrong. Why would they not touch it? I don't get it.
Because they don't understand it. Because it's so laden with Crowley and like demonology.
Yeah, a lot. I guess there are a lot of fictional fans that don't care about any real stuff, right?
Exactly. That's exactly right, and I do, and that's why I'm looking into it, man. And that's why I'm looking into Dark Lord, and because there's actually like Lovecraft was, I think, tapped into that invisible intelligence, you know, or infinite intelligence. Yeah, he was tapped into that.
Oh well, I think he was tapped into spirit entities. To be honest,
that too.
Because if he reads through all these sacred, secret books of magic,
right,
they're gonna want to, inspire him. And
I talked to a arch druid. Okay, there's a guy. He does the arch druid report, and I have friends that are druids and whatever. But I talked to a former druid who was the head druid over New England and all that, and weirdly, the way he talks is very much like my dad, which is very weird, and like no one else has that accent. It's the guy Doc Marquis. He does a lot of Illuminati videos. But he's like a born again Christian, but can speak like perfect German and like. And he was a Satanist and was hanging out, and he knows all the play. Like, he went to the army, and knows it. He was on Oprah when they were like the witches and talked about Colonel Aquino and all these things.
Was he a Satanist at the time on Oprah?
Yeah. Oh no, I guess he was a Reformed Christian. Okay. He was born into the Illuminati, whatever.
Into the Illuminati.
But anyway, he does seem to know a lot. So I called him up and I said, "Hey man, I got all these books, and he knew my family and stuff. Like he knew like, how do you know my family? Oh yeah, the Youngs, the Bengals." And I didn't know that at the time, but like according to the genealogical research, and my brother, like 10 years ago, was doing. He's really into computers and stuff like that. So he had photography. We would have. My grandmother left us like a bunch of like old pictures and letters and stuff like that. He would take them, scan them, and then go pixel by pixel and like fix them. Like if they had like a crease, he was really good. Wow. And he would fix them up. pretty good. And to the point where he would put them on Flickr, and actually, he could actually print them, and he did one of my grandmother as a baby, and sent to my mom. Was like, oh my god, and cried and all that. But it's kind of cool because it's like, oh wow, like, and he's like, Brandon, this is what our Uncle Bill, who's like in lodges at hi Uncle Bill, he's at lodges in Pasadena and stuff like that. He brags about it, so I'll say hi to him. And my cousin Stanley, who is an Army Corps of Engineer, Freemason, and stuff like that. So anyway, these were just like rumors that I always put off like my whole life that no, this never happened. But he said this is a picture of our great whatever grandfather, Arthur Young, and this is Ruth Payne Young. I was like, yeah, that is weird because like all of my grandmothers and great grandmothers and people were Rubies and Ruths and Rubies and Ruths, and I always wondered what was up with that, And turns out like there's some occult meaning to Ruby and Rose. It's like the Rosicrucian thing. I don't know, whatever. But they were famous for mediums and stuff like that. Years later, I'm researching this book, The Dark Lord by Peter Levenda, and I'm getting into his stuff. And he does a lecture on the Nine. He has a book called The Nine, and I haven't read it yet. I should. I've read parts of it. It gets into H.P. Lovecraft, but it starts off with a seance that happens in New England in Maine on New Year's Eve. So this would be like the anniversary of it, right? And stuff. So he says that the seance takes place. Arthur Young is there. This guy named Puharich, who I guess in occult circles is very, very well known, and he gets some. He's very well known. They get like Rockefellers are there, Forbes are there. They're related to like John Kerry and stuff like that. And I always wondered why like we were friends with them and stuff like that. My dad's a little kid. My dad would take me to meet all these politicians, and Barbara Bush came down from Air Force One and came up to me as a little kid and kissed me on my head and stuff like that. Right up to me. We were next to Nancy Bush Ellis and stuff like that. Like no big deal, you know what I mean? But like nowadays, like people don't believe me. But like I have evidence, like it was on CNN and all that. Like I was good school as a little kid. I didn't know what was going on, But turns out like there's a reason. It's because like the Youngs are connected, I guess. Anyway, so he's like, now this is and my brother back in like maybe 8 years ago was saying, Brandon, you won't get my on Flickr this author Peter something. I couldn't remember the last name, but I knew it was Peter. Was contacting another author was contacting him about using his images that he had put on his Flickr website. Because that happens if you take a picture of like a nice like of the city or something like that, and they're like, oh, that would be nice to print and put in a frame on in the 99, the local 99 or Fridays or something. You know what I mean? They do that. So they go to Flickr and they asked him. This author had asked him. I didn't know who it was at the time. And I was like, yeah, whatever. I just totally dismissed it. But it was the only pictures of that we had of Arthur Young, our great grandfather or something like that, who was like invented the Bell helicopter and things like that. And actually, Richard Hoagland knew him. He says. But anyway, so years later, I'm watching this lecture by Levenda. And he says, now this is you probably don't know who this is. And like the slide comes up and it's my brother's picture that he totally restored, because before it was totally crumpled and didn't look good. And there's my brother's picture of Arthur Young. And, you could totally go to it on Flickr and stuff. Anyway, so it's like one of the only, I think there's like maybe 2 photographs of him that I've ever seen. I've like looked. Yeah, and so he has, and that's the exact photo. Doesn't give any credit to my brother, obviously. But, so there he is, and I'm thinking, oh my God, like, what do we have to do with the secret space program? You know what I mean? And so he connects us because Arthur Young, they had this seance where they connected the Rockefellers and they all held hands. They had a seance, and it was a scribe from India and all this stuff right now and stuff. And they contacted this off-world intelligence. They were the Nine, and this is also, I guess, Kerry Cassidy called it the Giza Intelligences. I have no idea what that is. Sounds like a New Age thing to me. I don't, but I guess Peter Levenda said that, yes, this is the Giza Intelligences. jinxes, and everything has a 9 to it. I guess like in the Temple of Set, there's a Council of 9.
I wonder if I wonder if that's why the Order of the Nine Angles uses 9.
I have never heard of that order, and maybe, you know.
Okay.
But so anyway, so they said, we are 9, you are 9, and this is the plan. And they gave the plan. Mm-hmm. Whatever the plan is has been passed on through the family and these different families who are power brokers. Like, we weren't really like rich or anything like that, but they were. We were just like kind of like the mediums or something like that, you know. Mm-hmm. I get my family in it. So yeah, and so like we're not like rich by any means, but we're around powerful people. Like, you can go back to King Henry VIII and Sir Francis Bryan, who was like a direct lineage ancestor of mine, who was a court translator and a poet for King Henry VIII, and they wanted at one time the same woman, and of course, you know, Henry VIII had like 8 wives or something like that, right? And he trusted Sir Francis so much that he let him have that girlfriend, you know, that girl, and became his wife and stuff. So they were pretty close because he would criticize him, and he had a lot of sycophants, as kings do, you know what I mean? So anyway, going back to the 9, they connect, and Peter Levende's like, okay, so Arthur Young invents the Bell helicopter, and I was like, oh, I know, that's cool, I know, this is incredible. And Ruth Payne Young has a daughter also named Ruby, and I'm like, that's my grandmother, you know. I'm like, yeah, and she's like, and her daughter also Ruby. I'm like, oh my god, or whatever. And her other daughter, it was confusing, ended up being best friends with the wife or fiance, whatever, to Lee Harvey Oswald. And Ruth got him the job at the coffee. I don't know much. My brother was way into the Kennedy assassination stuff, but like, got Lee Harvey Oswald the job at this coffee place in Texas, Louisiana, and stuff like that. And like days before the Kennedys. So he's basically what he's trying to, he's connecting my family to the Kennedy assassination, which stinks because like we have like I know like I've met the Kennedys and stuff like that, and I like they're really nice people. I went to like their wakes and funerals and things like that. Like, I don't want our family name being connected to that. So I wrote to Peter Levenda. Right, and I wrote him on Skype, and I said, hey man, I was like, how do you know my family? Why are you connecting them to this and everything? And he didn't respond. Mm-hmm. So this guy Douglas Dietrich, who's like a military historian, and he has like encyclopedic knowledge and stuff like that. He's been on Coast to Coast, but he criticizes Coast to Coast a lot. And like, you know, he's very intelligent, but he has his own issues. He was like a right-hand man liaison to Colonel Michael Aquino and the Presidio military base scandal and all this stuff that I don't even know about, but whatever. He invited me on a show. His show was very well listened to, I guess. Mm-hmm. Like, you know, so I was on, I told my story, you know, kind of. And the next day, Peter Levenda responds. After months of not responding, he responds the very next day to me. So, and I'm like, oh wow, that's interesting, you know. And he's like, well, what do you want? You know what I mean? And I'm like, well, I just want to know, you know, why are you doing this? Like, I admire your work, you know. I'm trying to be polite, and I said, I do like you know, like to put together a hoax like this, like the Necronomicon, as a kind of thing to drop into the Lovecraftian scholarship and confuses the heck out of them. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a form of chaos magic, you know. Mm-hmm. And so, like, yeah, like wow, what a congratulations, man! You pulled it off of one of the greatest hoaxes. Well, it wasn't me; it was Simon, right? So, you know, I was saying that, and I was like, "But you know, how do you?" He's like, "Yeah, I know your family, blah 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 blah," you know, and that was pretty much it. And then I got in my car, and then this could be, I'm not even totally saying Peter Levenda is connected to this in any way. I mean, it could have been anybody or anything. But then that Monday, I went going to work. Car wouldn't start, which is kind of interesting, but whatever, you know. Then it started, and then I was like, okay, so I'm driving to work, and I live on the bottom of a hill, so I'm going up the hill, no problem, and then I go down the hill, and I go to hit on the brake, and there's no brakes. The brakes have been cut.
What?
Yeah, so I'm like, but luckily it's early in the morning, I'm going to work early in the morning, so it's like no traffic, luckily, man. And my like I had to hit e-brake, and e-brake didn't work. Okay, I'm like, oh god. So what could I do? I just spin the car like like this, and crash the car into a ditch. And my head, and I had my seatbelt and everything. I still like hit my head on the windshield, got knocked out. Sounds crazy, but this really happened. And then was in the hospital, and almost like I guess I came really close to dying and stuff like that. But I recovered really quickly, which thank God, man, because and then Doug was, you got to come back on the show and tell everybody about it. I was like, no, I don't want to. Man.
That's freaky. Who would want to do that?
I don't know. But then later on, when I recovered, the state police came to me and said, did you know that your car has, because I guess it was wired to, like, I forget the name, it was supposed to send some kind of spark.
It was wired to explode?
Yes.
What?
Yep. That's what they said. I mean, I wasn't there, I didn't see it, you know what I mean? But that would explain, because it was perfect. It would start up every day, no problem. But and that didn't work.
I wonder if like maybe some mob guys rigged the wrong car. I mean,
right, or something, because there's a lot of mob guys, and if you look up Gordon O'Brien, not the folk singer, if you look on Wikipedia, Gordon O'Brien, it'll say Gordon O'Brien, folk singer, mafia guy, hitman, or something like that. It's a mafia hitman. That was my uncle, Gordon O'Brien. And maybe, you know what I mean? He used to do that stuff. There's like documentaries about him and stuff. It's just my mom's side, the Italian Mazziano side. So anyway, that's kind of interesting part of the story. But I'm not trying to say Peter Lavender was involved with it or nothing like that.
Yeah, I seriously doubt it.
Yeah. No, I do too. So glad to be here, man. It's such an honor, really.
Thank you.
Like, no, really, man. It's such a confusing world, and like these hoaxes are so out there, and people are just conned all the time, like the flat Earth thing.
Yeah, the flat Earth is a good tool. Anyone who believes in flat Earth is going down the wrong path, and just ignore them.
Absolutely.
So if you see someone's page with a cool video, you're like, oh, that's pretty cool, maybe it's true. What other videos do they have? Flat Earth, flat Earth, flat Earth. That maybe that might be true, but with all this flat Earth, this person doesn't have the judgment capabilities to distinguish truth from falsehood.
Yeah.
And the Earth is most obviously a sphere. I even asked Richard Garriott, like
yeah,
and he was nice enough to. So most people don't want. I shouldn't have made a 20-minute video of joking half the time.
No, that was great.
All right.
Of course you should have.
But I'm going to make a 30-second video of just Richard Garriott's tweet.
Yeah.
Because it's that important. He went up there. Is. He's not part of the elite. He's just a video game designer.
Is he?
He designed a video game in his house in like 1978 or something. Using punch cards. He's not a member of the Illuminati. He's just an independent video game designer, and he happened to sell millions of games and become a millionaire, and so he could afford the ticket to go in outer space. So he paid He paid the ticket. He paid the Russians $30 million to go into outer space. Now, some people say it's 20 million, but I think maybe he paid NASA 30 million, and NASA paid the Russians 20 million or something like that happened.
Right? Maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, but still, like the fact that he even responded to you.
Yeah.
It gets into like the thing is, flat Earth has somehow seeped into the mainstream. Like Tim Heidecker was like. Refer to it and stuff. Like he was saying something like, like there's so many flat Earth videos on YouTube, and there is like when I try to look up like debunk or hoax, like you're one of the only ones that come up trying to like that I found, because it's when you put in flat Earth, it's all YouTube like documentaries trying to prove that the Earth is flat, and instead of the other way around.
I mean, it's pretty obvious. The Earth is shaped like a pyramid.
Yeah, right. I mean, they have these elaborate theories, and the funny thing is, like, I think about you because, you know, I have like a curiosity for entertainment value with Jimmy Church's show, and if you go on like you put on the hashtag F2B Fade to Black, if you put that hashtag on, you click on it, it will show like everybody that's watching the show and commenting on it, and there's such a big audience, like not that big, but pretty big, that's in real time, and he sees the tweets coming up and down, and like he has on people that you've, like Andrew Bashago made his presidential announcement on Jimmy Church's show, you know, I'm on to run for, and I'm thinking John could call up right now and just be like, hi Andy, you're a hoax completely. I time travel too, and I was like, you know what I mean? Like every show he has on, it's like it's discordance. You know what I mean? It's chaos.
I mean,
it's just
Bashago. If Bashago's a time traveler, why is he running? Because he already knows he lost. I don't get it. You know?
Exactly right. It's like it's just like paradoxes and like the funny thing is that, and he is a lawyer. I found out, but like I don't know if he's passed the bar or whatever. But like he speaks in a soft tone. He actually has like pretty good points about like, oh yeah, like everybody should have health care, and you know there's something wrong with the country. But then like it's like, oh, aren't you the guy that like says that you went to Mars and it's like it totally like that's how he got famous, you know what I mean? And like people make a living. Stuart Swerdlow, okay, I know people who are like that. He's like their god. Okay, this kid in Australia. Don't put this on the podcast, but he I think he has a SoundCloud, and I think I told you about this. He dedicated a song to Stuart Swerdlow, a complete album to Stuart Swerdlow. And from what I've heard from you, because you went through all this like he's just mentioned as like one of the kids in the Montauk, and he just took that and ran with it, and now he's like touring the world talking about galactic history and how his family is like the Russian KGB, and you know it's like it's important that people's lives don't get dedicated to like complete hoaxes, man. I just add compassion for other people. Your stuff is so important, man.
Like Stuart Swerdlow, he's one of the rare few people that heard about the Montauk Project before the book was published.
Right.
So he was in the audience of a UFO convention, walks up to Preston Nichols afterwards and says, hey, you know, cool story, it really rings a bell, you know. And Preston's the type of guy, because Preston even mentioned it, I believe, even to me. So Preston's the type of guy that mentions it to everyone. Preston says, oh, you could be a Montauk boy. You could be. It's possible. I'm pretty sure Preston, back in the day, there was a web forum called Montauk Project Forum. It was on Montauk Project. It was on MontaukProject.com. And back in 1999. It lasted a very short period of time. But during that short period of time, Preston and Peter Moon replied to people's posts. And so Peter Moon was nice enough to reply to a couple of my posts, and Preston Nichols was too. And I think Preston Nichols called everyone on the entire forum a potential Montauk boy. And he just ran with it. Stuart Swerdlow just ran with it, and it's his full-time job. Now, if you look at his website, you would think he's Sylvia Brown, the mysteries of the universe. He knows everything. I mean, it's a total joke.
But like, I mean, it's, and I can see someone like me even, like I've been tempted to like be like, oh, I could come up with a bunch of crap and say I was at the Montauk Project, and then maybe I could be touring the lecture circuit and make money off of it. And that's what these people have done.
That's what bothers me. I don't have the moral or ethical reasons to ever want to lie the rest of my life. No, I could never do that. You know what I mean?
Right.
So,
yeah, and that's what I like about you. And
so
that,
these
like, when people see you, they think hoax, and I'm like, no, this is hoax hunter, and they're telling me, oh, don't trust this guy. Like, his setup, his set is too good, his editing is too good, and all this.
Who says that?
Yeah.
Who says
Like,
that? Because
people that are stupid. But like,
my editing sucks pretty bad.
People that dedicate stuff to Stuart Swordlow and stuff. No, it's so good. Your stuff is so good that there must be a bunch of people involved. That's why Pyramidical show is pretty great, because you're like, it's like a kind of a spoof, like the Illuminati's funding your show or funding this project, and you know what I mean. It was good for that, but yeah, it's just like I couldn't do that either, man. And it's just like the fact that people can seize on, I've always had a compassion for people that can't discern, because I've had that problem, man. Yeah. Like you see something on YouTube nowadays, and it's like, wow, that looks kind of real. You know what I mean? Could be.
Yeah. Well,
and I've always had a compassion for people that can't see the truth and stuff, or discern right from wrong, because it's really tough nowadays, because people can do stuff.
Well, I think the average YouTuber is like that. The average YouTuber is age 14. When you're 14, you can hardly even tell what sarcasm is at that age.
Right.
You're starting to learn what sarcasm is at age 14, and so they barely know anything. But I relate to it just like you, because when I was in high school and I read the Montauk Project, I believe every single word in that book.
Did you?
I thought it was true. So when I researched it and I found out that it's a big load of crap, I didn't come to that conclusion from someone telling me. I researched it so thoroughly that I found a government website that listed Camp Hero, and I was like, whoa, this is a government website mentioning Camp Hero. It's probably, secret related, like it's top secret or whatever. So it was a chemical warfare material website warning citizens, stay away from this area, because there is it's an official dump place for chemical warfare material. So Camp Hero's basements, the Camp Hero basements, which are sometimes flooded over, sometimes they are blocked off, but back in the day they weren't blocked off, and you could literally see these barrels just sitting there. You can see old photos of the barrels. Those barrels have toxic waste inside of them.
Wow.
And it's the reason why the county has a guard, even to this day, still stationed. That guard just is lazy. You can get past him easily.
Right.
But his job is to keep citizens away from eating and touching and tasting this toxic waste.
Wow, really?
I found the official website. It was a .gov website, and the website doesn't exist anymore. This was back in 2004.
So you have a big jump ahead on many different people.
But I think I have a screenshot of that website, so I can show that sometime.
And that's the cool thing about you too, man, is that you document things that have already been scrubbed from the internet and stuff like that. You can screenshot it. Sometimes when I'm on the internet, I don't think about that. I'm when I come across some kind of information like that, I'll email the link to myself or something like that. But I don't come across that kind of stuff. And your deduction skills are like Sherlock, man. It's it's unbelievable. I mean that's a Sherlock, but
thanks.
But that Jody high roller guy videos.
Yeah.
I love the outrageousness and how great. I love it. He has this song. He passed me the ball. He broke my assist. And I used to play basketball and stuff, so that's a hilarious song. And he's just sitting there and he's just showing Ruby on my wrist, I passed you the ball, you broke my assist, and it's just the craziest, stupidest. But behind that is a real person, you know what I mean, who you've met and stuff and partied with, and that's cool, man. But you can obviously see it's just so over the top. I was dying. I had to look up every like, I don't know if he's Joe Riff Raff or Joe, but that's just his names or whatever. But every video is just hilarious, and he's just kind of like going like this. And he's just showing his watch, and sometimes it just shows his watch, and then it will just like it's just oh my god, it's just the funniest thing.
Riff Raff, I mean, I'm a big fan. I just heard about him through Three Loco. That's how I heard about him. Three Loco. See, Three Loco was a very unsuccessful trio of Andy Milonakis, Dirt Nasty,
I love that guy.
And Riff Raff. And I'm like, this Riff Raff guy, he's actually pretty good, whereas the other two sound more like comedians.
Yeah,
he sounds more like a legitimate rapper. So I looked at his other videos, and this was back in whenever Three Loco was brand new. It could have been 2012. This was 2012. Yeah, it was 2012.
Right.
So I made Riff Raff a Wikipedia page. What happened was Riff Raff tweeted, "Can someone make me a Wikipedia page?"
Oh wow!
And I said, "Yeah, sure, I can make one." And then 2 weeks went by and no one did it. No one. And I was like, wow, 2 weeks. I'm surprised all these Wikipedia experts haven't done it yet, so I'll give it a shot. And I barely know anything about Wikipedia. I copied and pasted someone else's Wikipedia and then changed it to Riff Raff.
Oh, cool.
And I didn't plagiarize. I just got I went to MTV.com. I went to Vice.com. I went to a couple of different websites and I got a few quotes. And I gave credit to the quotes. And I linked up like 15 links. MTV.com, Vice.com, and other news websites, even if they're super obscure.
Right.
So if you ever want to have a Wikipedia page, it's very tough. But if you put 15 news sites or 15 links that are legitimate,
right,
it'll be hard for the Wikipedia team to immediately delete it and refute it, because they couldn't refute it. Because what happened was, I made the page, I tweeted Riff Raff, and 10 seconds later, Riff Raff tweeted it to his million fans, and he said...
10 seconds?
He said, "Hey, my official Wikipedia, check it out."
No way.
So a million people went to it, that forced it to not be deleted. See, it was going to be deleted probably in 10 minutes. But because it had 15 links and people were visiting it. And so it had 1 million revisions, but you can go down to the very bottom of the author of the entire page.
Yeah.
And it says Dalmanus is the author.
Oh, that's your...
And that's one of my aliases.
Alias, right. Wow. And like, I saw some old videos of you, like you actually went to AwesomeCon in San Diego and saw Tim and Eric with I've been Bob Odenkirk.
I went to every single AwesomeCon there ever was.
No way.
There was only an AwesomeCon in 2007, 8, 9, and 10. I went to all 4 of them.
Oh my god.
And Tim and Eric never did it ever again.
Right.
But I'm glad I went to all 4 of them. Yeah, Bob Odenkirk, I really wanted to meet him and talk to him.
Too, man.
But the only time he wasn't busy, he was eating a hot dog with his wife and kid. And I was like, I'm not going to walk up to that.
No.
This is a park. Comic-Con's over there, and he's over here to get away from Comic-Con. So I was going to wait until he was done.
Yeah.
So I was with my girlfriend eating a hot dog, too. And Tim and Eric were nice. They gave free hot dogs and soda.
Yeah.
So...
and then they had like that shrimp party, like that you went. That's how you met.
I went to the only official Beaver Boy party that ever existed ever. But anyway, so I look over and he's gone. Bob Odenkirk just disappeared.
Disappears. Wow.
He did do karaoke, and I videotaped the karaoke.
Yeah, that's what I saw. Yeah, it was Petite Feet too.
Yeah.
Before I even went out to LA and ever heard of Tim and Eric, my fiance she had moved out to LA. She was like, "Okay, you're gonna come out now," and had to move. And she's like, "Check this out. These guys I met. They live right next to us." And I'm like, "Okay." And I'm like, "Who are these guys?" And I'm kind of jealous a little bit. And it turned up, but I wasn't when I saw the video, because it was like a live recording of the song Petite Feet. And she's like, you have to look up Petite Feet and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh. And it wasn't on the internet. You could only get it on like Tim and Eric. There was like a little live clips that people had done with like their cell phone of their live show or something. I was like, what the heck is this?
Mm-hmm.
But I never heard the actual song. Mm-hmm. Then I heard the actual song. And it was just so funny, you know. Video, that's how I kind of came across you. Was the Tim Heidegger, Eric, are they in the devil worship or Satan worshipers? And like I saw, and I thought it was the funniest thing. But I was like, is there something to this? Because like I knew I had met Greg Turkington before. I mean, when he was Neil Hamburger, I knew that and stuff. But he wasn't really known. He was kind of known in Australia a little bit, which is weird, but not too well known. And definitely Greg wasn't, but like Greg was putting up like obscure records in San Francisco, and I come to find out, man, that like Greg does you ever see On Cinema with Tim Heidegger and stuff?
Yeah, I've
or
seen
Decker.
Mm-hmm.
Have you seen Decker and Decker versus Dracula and stuff?
Decker, I know, is a huge hit, but I saw him in Ant-Man. You know.
Yeah, Ant-Man too. Yeah, it's good. Greg Turkington was on Tom Green's show, but it was a different host, and Greg says, oh yeah, me and Anton LaVey used to hang out, because he would hang out at Anton LaVey's house, and they would watch like old movies, and then Anton LaVey would like go down the basement and come up with like some obscure like item from the movie that he had or something like that. You know, he was like Greg said he was like the coolest grandfather, and he actually put out like the first vinyl records of like Anton LaVey on there. Interesting stuff.
Yeah, you showed me that link. I watched it.
Did you?
Yeah, that was interesting. He said they just watched TV together, and and the vinyl sold out really quick. Yeah, so.
Yeah. All right, so back to Nine Angles, since we're.
Well, I'm not a Nine Angles expert, but apparently, it's a pretty famous satanic order. Mm-hmm. And Coetting was a member for a short period of time, I think. But I don't know anything about his history with that. Maybe I've even heard it through you. It's very common, but it's not common at the same time. It's the Order of the Nine Angles learned that entities are attracted to sacred geometry.
Okay.
Have you heard of that?
Sacred geometry, yeah, but not the nine angles, no.
Well, the nine angles, they just draw a random rectangle with some points on it and whatever, and supposedly entities are attracted to it. Mm-hmm. Now, I was thinking about why would an entity, and let's say a fifth dimensional entity, why would they be attracted to something with angles? Mm-hmm. And I think it might have something to do with how they see our dimension. They are above time to a certain extent, and maybe an easy way for them to enter this dimension is through looking at a certain pinpoint, because we don't know exactly how they see us, but I do have some clues, and I will mention that later in a future episode. But the corner of a room has angles, and maybe that's why the corner of the room is a focal point. All I can say from personal experience is 9 times out of 10, the corner of the room is involved when an entity appears in your room. That's just my personal experience. The corner of a room, and I thought that didn't mean anything until I learned about Crowley's thing. Until I learned about 100 other examples online. 100 examples of people not connecting the dots. People just saying, oh, Haitian Vaudon, the crossroads is the corner of your room. And I was like, hey, that's a coincidence. And then a million other people say it. It's almost as if no one has ever really focused on it. But
yeah,
I
have a cool story about that.
Okay, sure.
Robert Johnson supposedly always record, and he was the guy that the crossroads
supposedly sold his soul to the devil for the blues.
Yeah. But I guess he would always record from the corner of a room.
Wow, that's crazy.
And to this day, that hotel room where he stayed at, people still try to get that sound because it's a very Robert Johnson. I love his music.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Yeah, and like, but the corner of the room, like they say they see his, and like when you mentioned the corner of the room, I was like, whoa, that makes sense. And I heard this guy who's doing a time travel seminar coming up with Peter Moon, and Douglas Dietrich and Morley Solomon. I think pretty soon they're doing a time travel seminar. This guy Andrew Bartzies, he talks about how you have to protect yourself from these spiritual entities, these fifth dimensional entities. I think he calls them sixth or seventh dimensional entities, and you have to like put crystals or like some black triangle thing or whatever in the you have to protect the corners of your room or your house or your yard or something like that, because there is an occult doctrine called megalosomancy. I think it's the big name for it, and that just means if you're designing a city, let's say you're in the Army Corps of Engineers and you're going to design like a street like Washington D.C. or something like that, you look at the layout of that map and like you create angles where you know energy is flowing. So like traffic goes in a certain direction and people walking go in a certain direction and stop signs and whatever. So you create energy flow, okay, around like rotaries and things like that. A lot of energy gets like going around there. And that's why I think Freemasons who design a lot of these cities, if you go across it, and I've been across the country a lot of times, you can stop at certain cities and go to like the city square, like where I am right now. You can go to it and you can see that it's designed, like they'll have a plaque sometimes to say this was designed by the Freemasons and stuff like that. Yeah, I mean, they were the Shriners. They're pretty out and open. They're the not so secret society, you know what I mean? And so, but a lot of them are in power and they design cities and they design it in a way so like the energy that people just walk around in these cities not knowing, but a lot of that energy they think can build up through these angles that you talk about, but also the materials that are laid. That's why you have the Washington Monument, which is 666 feet long. I was one of the last people up in the Washington Monument before they closed it to the public. With my dad, I was just a kid, but and I hid a little penny in the crack, so if I ever come back there, I'll find it, but they closed it down. And but I remember being up there and thinking something's definitely weird about this place, and looking into it, I remember going to the Capitol before the sun rose, and there's a law in Washington D.C. that no building can be built higher than the Washington Monument. So you'll never find a building built higher than Washington Monument, because when the sun rises, the first light of the day, of the dawn, of the new day, will hit that pyramidion, the obelisk, and what it does is it hits that pyramid and it sends the light and illuminates the dome of the Congress. And Congress, if you look it up in a legal dictionary, just means sex. They called it Congress back then. So the Congress, you have a phallic symbol, right, the obelisk, and then you have it penetrating the dome of the Capitol building. So that's megalosomancy. It's a big word for architecture that is designed to attract and energy and kind of things like that. And you can see it all over DC. DC's a big example.
I've seen the satellite images. You could definitely see pentagrams and all kinds of things.
Right.
In DC, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's astrological stuff. I mean, even there's so much power in a name. When you give a name something, you give it a lot of power, and that's why, when you name a demon or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
That's why, in Harry Potter, in Lord of the Rings, Voldemort and Sauron they are he who shall not be named. You know what I mean? They won't even speak the language of the black speech in Rivendell, for example, because there's a certain instant, like, even in Catholic faith, like when you pray, there's an actual, not too many people may believe this now, but you're supposed to believe that you're actually invoking those saints, and those saints are actually with you when you mention their name. So if I say, if I invoke, Archangel Michael to help me, protect me from angels, from demons and stuff like that, you're supposed to, like, he's actually there in the room, you know what I mean? If you have like a three-dimensional object in the room, he's even more there, and he's more attracted to that, you know what I mean? So there is, I can see, because the universal language is kind of like math, and geometry, and sacred geometry, and you can see it in patterns in life, in fractal life, just in our body, for example, which I think is why that wand guy maybe said it should be the length of, say, from your fingertip to like the middle of your arm, or something, like whatever it is, or and there are those Fibonacci sequences and things like that to the human body. Leonardo da Vinci was onto that and all that stuff. So yeah, man, that, like, I can see why those fifth dimensional entities would be kind of attracted to angles and stuff like that.
Like you said, don't mention names. I personally believe you should never contact or even attempt to contact, because you don't know, they're 100% invisible. It could be anything, doing anything, and 9 times, I would say 10 times out of 10, their intentions are going to be bad. I was haunted for 6 months by a poltergeist. Not once did I ever attempt to communicate with it, let alone get its name. If I gave it a name, it would automatically want to be friends and communicate. I didn't give it a name. I didn't talk to it. Well, I talked to it one time, and I already mentioned that one time. I said, this is after it knocked over a stack of boxes and pushed down my pillows. Okay, I'm giving away some details, but how about...
That's okay, don't worry about it.
I still have these pillows in my garage, and I was going to do a reenactment. But I have some pillows that are unupholstered pieces of foam. I was going to make pillows for my chairs. And this entity knocked over a stack of boxes in my closet. Before or after that, it pushed pillows down. It pushed the pillows down like this. And then it went back up, right?
Right.
And then it went down again and went back up again. Now, I can tell you this. Gravity cannot do that ever.
No.
Ever. Never, ever, ever. So it's impossible to explain that scientifically, except for the obvious. People will call me crazy. Now, I have nothing to gain from the story.
Right.
People will say, oh, you're selling the story, but it happened to me in 2011. I've kept it a secret for at least 3 years. And I've only mentioned it now because I'm into the paranormal and the supernatural. My channel's always been about that. The only reason I was interested in time travel is because it's pretty paranormal. It's an out there subject. I listened to Art Bell since I was a kid. I've always been interested in these shows, and I had a video camera in the corner of the room. It was a cheap video camera. I could even show it to you. Let me get it.
Yeah. Wow.
I had this camera in the corner of my room, of this haunted room. It's the JVC HD.
Okay.
It's not HD.
It's nice.
It's not HD. It's fake. It's fake HD. It's the size of HD, but it's not the quality of HD. It's probably the quality of this Skype right here. And I had this in the corner of my room for 6 months.
What? Okay.
Now, I purposely didn't once ever record the entity knocking over stuff because A, it wouldn't tell me, hey, I'm going to knock over that thing over here.
Yeah.
Get the camera and start recording. And like I've said in the past, it knocked over as many as 10 items a day, but that was in the space of many hours.
But still.
I didn't have warning, okay, let's...
Yeah.
I would literally...
Exactly.
Even if I did, and I've already given examples of this, but even if I did, And here's a little Yoda
Oh, cool.
thing. Let's say, and this is light enough where it could easily knock this over. This entity had a limit. This entity could only push over a certain amount of weight.
Right.
So I think this entity had to build up its energy. I think it built up its energy and then knocked over what it could. So if it didn't move something for a day, I think it was building up to move over that huge stack of boxes or whatever the case may be. But that stack of boxes, even though it was a big stack, and I've never mentioned the stack of boxes, there's a backstory of even more detail, but the stack was teetering just a little bit of teetering. Mm-hmm. And so I think this entity, while I was at work for 8 hours, I think it messed with everything in the room until it found something teetering. It's like, oh, that's teetering. I'll wait till it gets home. Wait till it gets comfortable. Then I'll knock over this huge teetering stack of boxes.
Whoa.
So, let's say magically, which is very rare, that I could have had the camera at the right place at the right time.
No way, yeah.
Let's say, okay, this is what it would have happened. It would have been this falling off a table.
Right.
Literally, everyone on YouTube would say that's the fakest video I've ever seen in my life.
Yep.
So even if I recorded some legitimate poltergeist activity, everyone would have said it was fake. So I already knew that. I already judged the pros and cons, and I decided against it. I decided filming it is pretty close to wanting to contact it, and I didn't want to communicate with it. I didn't want to contact it. And I knew if I started filming, maybe it would start a dialogue, and maybe it would start knocking things over. But I didn't want to. That's too close to black magic. It's too close.
Yeah.
It's too close to asking an entity to move an object for you.
Yep. It's flirtation. I was
totally innocent of any of it because I was just being harassed.
Right.
But when you say levitation. Now, levitation, I never saw levitation with my eyeballs. I only saw items being knocked over. It's almost as if a dog that was invisible was running through my room knocking over stuff.
Whoa.
That's almost the personality of this entity. It was almost like an animal.
Right.
And
oh my god, that's scary,
but
man.
It was an intelligent animal, though, so maybe it was closer to like a monkey. But it definitely sat on everything in the entire room. And when I say sat, it doesn't matter how high it was.
No way.
It sat on everything. It would sit on the computer. It would sit on it. And the reason I know it sat on everything is because you know the sound a chair makes when someone sits on it, like a slight creak?
Sure.
I would hear that 100 times a day. 100 times a day I would hear and yes, people would say I'm crazy, and I have nothing to gain, only everything to lose.
No,
but I know for a fact it happened, and
you know, and it's not this big showmanship like you have. Like, I hate it because this discredits people like you and me that are afraid to tell our experiences and the details of it and stuff. You know, and what might attract something like that, or not, or repel it. Is those stupid shows like Ghost Hunters and you know, we are here in this place, you know, and they come and they have already looked up the registry of deeds, know the history that somebody was murdered in there at one point, you know what I mean, or it's a famous old building.
Ghost
and
Hunters
they already know
that's the fakest show.
And so they like walk and they're like, did you hear that? No, I didn't hear that. No, I hear it now, you know, or like, oh, this area is really, and it's so popular, and like people, it's all night vision, like people expect like it's gonna scream or it's gonna do like something, but no, it's a lot more subtle and creepier, and I think that's what makes The Shining very creepy and horror.
Yeah.
Because like it's the spatial dimensions of that floor, of the second floor, third floor, whatever. Don't make sense, man, and like the geometry doesn't make sense, and then like, you know, you probably know this, like Jack will be there and then the chair will be right there, and then they'll cut to Wendy talking to Jack, and then the chair will be gone. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, like inconsistencies that Kubrick would not have put in there.
Well, continuity errors, they happen all the time on movie sets, though. So
true.
If let's say they filmed that scene for 20 hours, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is taking too long," and well, we got it. Kubrick's such a perfectionist. Maybe 2 weeks later he'll say, "No, we didn't get it. Let's go back 2 weeks later," and it's possible the chair would be gone and he wouldn't notice.
It is possible, but my thesis is that, or hypothesis is that Kubrick was so smart and onto these things that he really believes like that these things are manifest in subtle ways and take over for people in these subtle ways and
possible.
stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and like and so like when he was doing that, and then he came to like, okay, we'll have like these very subtle things. It could be a continuity error, but with Kubrick, I mean, if he's sitting down watching The Shining and he's seeing, okay, Jack's there, and then there's a chair right behind him, and then they cut to Wendy and they cut to Jack and the chair's not there. You don't think Kubrick's going to notice that in the background? I mean, he was pretty perfect, and it's the only chair. It's like it's a wall and a chair, and it's right behind. I mean, you know what I mean? It's too fast.
It's possible that
I don't know. I think he's too smart. I think, you know what I mean? I don't know.
We could talk about Kubrick in the future.
Yeah, that'd be cool, man.
Steven Spielberg, like I probably mentioned to you, or someone, Steven Spielberg on the extra featured DVD that comes with the special edition. Steven Spielberg says he watched The Shining over 20 times.
Oh my God.
And so I've tried to beat Steven Spielberg's record. I've probably watched The Shining about 15 times. And I'll watch it 5 more times just to catch up to what he was back in 2000 or whenever that film was recorded. But there's definitely, you can learn something new every single time you watch it. It's a crazy movie, you know. It's
absolutely, yeah. I think that goes for like most Kubrick movies. You know what I mean? Like if you pay attention to numbers and like the first time I watched The Shining, I was more attracted to "Here Comes Johnny" and like the kind of outrageous stuff that Jack Nicholson was doing, and like, you know, but when you watch it and then you have other people who comment on it and point out to you that like, hey, you know, like look at the Native American motifs all over there, and keep in mind that the Overlook Hotel is based on like, you know, there are a lot of hotels that are built over sacred Indian burial grounds, and like especially the hotel that's based on in Colorado, I think it is, there was like a massacre. You know, we just wiped out, you know, and it has that white man's burden motif that Jack says and stuff. I mean, all these things I think informed the creepiness. There was an underlining creepiness, like, because there's not like a ghost that pops up or anything like that.
Like
there's nothing like that.
Like the untold story is there, and only maybe your subconscious, if watching it for the first time, can really even piece that together. But I can tell you the freakiest time I ever watched that movie. The freakiest time. You know the freakiest scene in the whole movie where the old lady's naked?
Oh, yeah.
So,
the old bag, yeah.
So I'm watching the movie with my ex-girlfriend, and the naked lady pops out, right? And we're already kind of like, and the second the old lady comes out, the exact second the old lady comes out, my dad walks in the room and he's like, "Hey, turn this off! What the F is this? Turn it off!" and like we get freaked out from the movie, and then we get freaked out from behind. We're like, "What?"
Oh my God!
That was the scariest time I've ever watched. It was hilarious.
Man.
And I told my dad, "This is art. It's not a pornography movie. Obviously, it's The Shining." You know?
Right. No, but like that's a bad time to walk in on a movie for sure.
Yeah.
But like, I mean, the scariest time I've ever watched a show, I think being alone and just watching it and being aware of those subconscious elements that Kubrick had studied, because he had studied like the tricks of marketing that were being done and the subconscious things that like you know, like genitalia and ice cubes and things like that, and you know, like he was into that, and like it worked. Like Edward Bernays and Freudian sort of marketing works. To a point. It can't be overt, but like it does work, and like there's a lot of that going on in The Shining. And when you're aware of it, it's creepy to watch, man. It is a true horror movie without, you don't have to have poltergeist activity.
I love the soundtrack. It's like my favorite soundtrack. That movie.
Yeah.
People think it's creepy, but I wanna buy the record. But
yeah,
the recording is starting to jam up because it's starting to crash. I don't want it to whole crash. So, is it okay if we end? Do you want to end on something?
Absolutely, man. Well, yeah. Let's. Yeah. I just want to thank you, John, for having me on the podcast. I hope you have me back. It was kind of nervous. This is my first time. I'm very honored to be.
You did great. Don't worry about it.
The guest. Yeah, thanks. But I was kind of all over the place, went on some tangents. We'll edit it and you'll edit it and stuff, and hopefully it will be good. But thank you for having me on. Everybody, definitely support Hoax Hunter Razimus and Pyramidical and everything. And it's just what you're doing is just, I can't emphasize enough, man. It's really like in this world of the digital age where everybody's a click away from flat Earth theory, from time travelers that go to Mars and jump rooms to Mars, and all these different crazy people. There has to be a voice of reason, and it can't be an adult like an old guy telling us that. It has to come from our generation, and like you're the only one out there that produces quality. Well, one of the only ones that I know of anyway, that produces quality stuff all your own, and you have no agenda but to tell the truth and to expose hoaxes. And for that, man, if I had $1 million, I would give it to you. I was, whatever, I would help you out in any way. But I am so happy and honored just to be like a colleague of yours, and just like, and it's an honor to be on Pyramidical podcast. So thank you so much, man.
Well, thank you very much. I'll definitely have you on again. I think you're the best guest so far. You're going to be the best guest because I love tangents, and I would call it the Tangent Podcast if I could. I go off on so many tangents. I have this friend that hates tangents, and he'll stop me. He'll say, "How'd you get to that tangent? What led you from this to this?" He literally has to know how I went from this to this. And I'll tell him there's 50 things in between, and I think 1,000,000 miles a second. I can give you everything if you want, but it'll take some time, and I'll go off on another tangent.
Tangent from that, exactly. I'm the same way, man, yeah.
But I've met a lot of people that go off on tangents, and I personally think if you go off on tangents, you probably just think really fast, and you're thinking of 1,000,000 things at the same time, whereas people that never go on tangents, maybe they just focus on. They're better at focusing, I guess. I don't know, but yeah. I prefer tangents, and thank you for being on the podcast. This is so long, I might have to break it up in a couple episodes. Hope that's okay.
Cool. Yeah, definitely edit it, man. Because
right. I'll definitely edit it. And thank you for being my first guest. And
dude, honor. I'm so honored. You're the best guy, man. And in true hoax hunter, Razimus, Pyramidical fashion. Be seeing you.
All right. Be seeing you.